You ever take that first sip of coffee in the morning and feel nothing? No boost, no clarity, just the same foggy brain, the same heavy body, the same that's been hanging around for weeks. Maybe you used to feel unstoppable after your coffee, but now it just makes you anxious or tired or worse, totally numb. And if you've ever thought, is something wrong with me? Why doesn't caffeine work anymore? How am I still this tired? This episode is for you because this isn't just about coffee. It's about what your body is trying to tell you. And when we finally start listening instead of pushing through, that's where real energy comes from. You're listening to the Root Cause RX, your weekly dose of no fluff functional medicine where we stop chasing symptoms and start treating what's actually driving them. I'm your host, Dr. Nate Fulton, and this is your prescription for energy, clarity, hormones, gut health, and getting your body back online. Let's get into it. I hear this all the time from patients, from friends, even from people in my DMs. I used to feel amazing after my morning coffee, but now it does nothing. Or I drink 2 or 3 cups and I still crash hard by the afternoon. Or I feel jittery, anxious, but not actually awake. And if any of those are hitting home, I want you to know you are not broken, you are not weak, and no, you don't need a stronger roast. This is a signal from your body, from your nervous system, from your energy production pathways. And what it's saying is, I've been running too hard for too long, and I can't keep going like this. So today, we're going to break down why caffeine stops working, what it reveals about your stress system, mitochondria, and nervous system, and how to actually reset your energy from the inside out. So whether you've got your coffee in hand or you're wondering if you should skip it altogether today, let's talk about what's really going on. Let's clear this up. Caffeine doesn't create energy, it stimulates it. It tells your adrenal system to hit the gas. It nudges cortisol, it spikes adrenaline. It gives your brain the illusion of momentum, even when your cells are tired. And that can be helpful short term, especially in your 20s or early 30s when your body's way more resilient. But what happens when you've been flooring that gas pedal for years and the engine underneath starts rattling? Well, that's where so many people find themselves now. People who've been holding it all together for everyone, working, caregiving, performing, hustling through stress, illness, even burnout, using caffeine not to just wake up, but to keep going when their system's already tapped out. And here's the truth. Caffeine isn't fixing the root cause, it's overriding it. And for a while, that override works until it doesn't. You build tolerance, your cortisol receptors stop responding, your mitochondria downshift into energy conservation mode, and suddenly, coffee just doesn't hit like it used to. And what we're often looking at here, even though it's not formally diagnosed, is something called HPA axis dysfunction. The HPA axis, which is short for the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, is basically your body's stress command center. It's how your brain talks to your adrenal glands to help you respond to the world around you. When a challenge comes up, whether it's a deadline, an argument, a skipped meal, or even something like sleep deprivation, your brain sends a signal down the line. Hey, we need some backup here. And your adrenal glands respond by releasing cortisol, the get up and go hormone that helps you stay alert, manage inflammation, and mobilize energy. And when that system is working well, it's brilliant. It helps you rise to the occasion and then come back down afterward. But when stress is constant, whether it's emotional, physical, nutritional, or even environmental, that communication loop starts to break down. Sometimes it gets stuck in overdrive, pumping out cortisol at all the wrong times. And sometimes it flatlines, barely responding at all. And that's what we call HPA axis dysfunction. It's not a disease, it's a dysregulation. It's a misfire in the conversation between your brain and your stress hormones. And when that happens, you feel it. You wake up tired, even after a full night of sleep. You get jittery after coffee, or you crash hard an hour later. You feel foggy, anxious, wired but exhausted, and you start wondering, why can't I handle the things that like I used to? But yeah, that's not failure. That's adaptation. Your body is trying to protect you. And if we listen to why it's not working anymore, that's where healing begins. Here's a pattern that I see over and over again. Someone who used to be unstoppable suddenly feels like a stranger in their own body. This is the person who used to run on 5 hours of sleep, intermittent fasting, black coffee, and sheer willpower. They could crush deadlines, workouts, and family logistics all before lunch. But now, they wake up already tired, they're wired at night but foggy all day, they need coffee just to function, and then even that barely moves the needle. Their gut feels off, their hormones feel off, their brain feels off, and here's the kicker, they blame themselves. They say, "What's wrong with me? Why can't I handle what I used to? I must just need to clean up my diet, take a break from sugar, and maybe get a little bit stricter with sleep." But the real story, it's not about willpower. It's about a nervous system that's stuck in overdrive, a mitochondrial system that's been running on fumes, and a stress response that's lost its rhythm. And that tipping point, when caffeine stops working, is often the body's first clear cry for help, especially for women, because let's be real, women are often carrying a mental load that nobody else sees. They're working, planning, parenting, managing, organizing, caregiving, all while scanning for what needs to be handled next. And when things start slipping, they don't rest, they push harder. But there comes a moment when the body stops asking and starts demanding, not because it's weak, but because it's done surviving and it's ready to heal. So let's zoom out for a second, because if caffeine has stopped working for you, it's not random. Your body is smart. It's always adapting and it's always trying to protect you. So when stimulation no longer gives you the spark that it used to, that's not a willpower problem, that's a systems issue. And in my practice, I see 3 big systems that tend to get overloaded, especially in people who've been running on fumes for a while. Let's break those down one by one, because when we understand why caffeine stops working, we can finally stop blaming ourselves and start rebuilding energy from the inside out. The first one is cortisol resistance. So when energy tanks, most people assume my cortisol must be low, my adrenals must be shot, and sometimes that is exactly what's happening. When I run adrenal panels, I've seen people with completely flatlined cortisol. The system has been maxed out for so long, it doesn't even respond anymore. And you'll feel that as brain fog, zero motivation, fatigue that sleep doesn't touch, feeling panicked or dizzy when you get hungry, and mood swings or crashing anxiety in the afternoon. But here's the twist. Sometimes cortisol isn't low. It looks normal, but your cells aren't listening. And that's called cortisol resistance. Just like insulin resistance, where you have plenty of insulin, but your cells ignore it, cortisol resistance means you've got the hormone, but no one's answering the call. And the symptoms, wired at night, flatlined in the morning, caffeine barely works or it makes you anxious, you crash hard after meals or stimulation, and you feel like you're spinning your wheels but going nowhere. And in either case, whether it's low cortisol or cortisol resistance, more caffeine isn't the solution. Because if you're depleted, caffeine squeezes juice from a dry sponge. And if you're resistant, caffeine just screams louder into a system that's already tuned out. And that's why one of the first steps to rebuilding energy is not pushing harder, it's restoring responsiveness. Number 2, mitochondrial depletion. Mitochondria are your cellular power plants. They're what actually make ATP, which is the fuel that runs your body. And they are not indestructible, right? Mitochondria get depleted by chronic stress, inflammation, nutrient deficiencies, poor sleep, and over-reliance on caffeine. So if you've been surviving on stimulants and skipping meals, your mitochondria feel that. And instead of burning out completely, they downshift to protect you. They conserve energy, they go into safe mode. So what does that feel like? You drink coffee and get jittery, but not energized. You crash hard an hour later, you're exhausted even after rest, and exercise makes you feel worse, not better. This is not about motivation. This is mitochondrial fatigue, and it needs a rebuild, not a jolt. Number 3, nervous system overload. This one might be the most overlooked. If your nervous system has been stuck in fight or flight mode for years, caffeine is like pouring gasoline on an electrical fire. You're already on edge, or easily startled, or chronically wired, and overreactive to small stressors. And then you add caffeine, boom. Heart palpitations, anxiety spikes, breath tightens, chest constricts, energy crashes. Your body starts protecting you by becoming intolerant to stimulation. This is not psychological weakness, it's a physiological overload. And your body, it's not trying to ruin your productivity. It's trying to bring you back to safety. Now, while we've talked a lot about stress, mitochondria, and your nervous system, there's another layer that I can't leave out, especially for women. And that is how your hormones and your cycle interact with caffeine. Because it's not just your stress response that shifts your tolerance, it's also your monthly rhythm. Let's break it down. Caffeine hits differently depending on where you are in your cycle. In the follicular phase, which is the early part of your cycle, your body tends to be more resilient to stress. And in the luteal phase, which is the second half, especially the week before your period, your nervous system is more sensitive. Blood sugar is more unstable, and your tolerance for stimulants can plummet. So if you've ever had coffee in the second half of your cycle and suddenly felt more anxious, more bloated, more wired but mentally foggy, it's not in your head. Caffeine increases cortisol, and cortisol can interfere with progesterone, which is the hormone that calms your brain, supports sleep, and reduces inflammation. So if you're already low in progesterone, or skipping meals or under eating, or chronically stressed or inflamed, caffeine might feel fine some weeks and then wreck you other weeks. That's not inconsistency, that's hormone interaction. And if you've made this connection in your own life, I'm a huge fan of cycle-aware caffeine habits. Go lighter on caffeine in your luteal phase. Prioritize protein-rich breakfasts before caffeine. And use herbal adaptogens like holy basil in the second half of your cycle instead of stimulants. Because your hormones aren't just fluctuating, they're sending messages too. Okay, so what if you're listening to all of this and thinking, okay, that sounds like me, but how do I actually know where I stand? Like, is this burnout? Is it HPA axis dysfunction? Is it my mitochondria? Here's the thing. You don't have to guess. Your labs will tell us. This is one of the reasons I love functional blood work and deeper hormone panels. They take the shame and the self-blame out of the equation. Because when your energy crashes, most people immediately go to, I must just not be trying hard enough. I should fix my diet, take more supplements, sleep better. But sometimes the deeper story is already in your blood work. When I'm looking at labs from a root cause lens, I'm asking, how's your cortisol showing up in the morning? Because if it's totally flat or it's barely in range, that tells me that your stress system is tapped out. Even if your day is calm, your body's still in energy conservation mode. What's your DHEAS doing? If it's low or trending downward, that's a sign that your adrenals are slowing production. And again, you're not broken, you're just adapting. How's your thyroid actually functioning? I don't just want to see a normal TSH, I want to see how your free T3 is doing. Because that is the hormone that actually gives your cells energy. And if that's low normal or trending downwards, your metabolic fire is dimming. Is your reverse T3 high? That's a classic mitochondrial slowdown marker. It's the body's way of putting on the brakes to prevent burnout. I also look at things like ferritin, not just to check for anemia, but to see if you've even got enough iron stores to make energy. In women, anything under 40 often correlates with fatigue, even if your hemoglobin looks fine. Same with vitamin D and B12. You might be in range, but if you're sitting in the low 30s for vitamin D or the 400s for B12, you're not going to feel your best, especially when it comes to nerve repair, brain fog, or resilience. Then, if we go deeper with something like a Dutch panel or an adrenal panel, we can zoom in on what your cortisol rhythm is doing across the day. Is your cortisol awakening response flat? Is your total cortisol low? Is your DHEA suppressed even if you're in your 30s or 40s? Are you metabolizing cortisol too fast? Meaning the body's trying, but the tissues aren't responding. And when I see these patterns, I don't see dysfunction. I see adaptation. Your body's been trying to keep you afloat, often without enough resources, rest, or support. And when we finally have this kind of data in front of us, it's empowering because you're not stuck guessing. You're not trapped in try harder mode. You've got a map, and it's one that helps you rebuild energy from the inside out. And what's even better, when we support those systems, your labs will shift right along with you. Your mitochondria recover, your cortisol becomes more responsive, your energy finally matches what you know your body is capable of. All right, we've talked about the why. Now let's talk about the how. How do you get off the caffeine roller coaster and actually feel like yourself again? Here's the 3-part roadmap that I use with patients. First, stabilize blood sugar before you touch caffeine. This might be the single most important thing. If you start your day with coffee on an empty stomach, you're kicking off a cortisol roller coaster and setting your mitochondria up to fail. So instead, within 60 minutes of waking, eat real food. Aim for 30 grams of protein, healthy fats, and a bit of fiber. Think eggs and avocado, chia pudding and protein powder, or even last night's dinner leftovers. Then, if you still want coffee, drink it with that meal, not before. This one shift stabilizes cortisol, it buffers stress, and helps your mitochondria actually make energy. Number 2, buffer the nervous system. If your nervous system's been fried, caffeine hits harder than it should. So we want to build resilience before stimulation. Start with things like magnesium glycinate at night to calm the nervous system, morning light within 30 minutes of waking to reset your cortisol rhythm, nasal breathing, 2 to 3 minutes can downshift your nervous system fast, and gentle movement, things like walking, mobility, vagus nerve exercises. And supplements like rhodiola, holy basil, or ashwagandha can help, but they're not for everyone, especially if you're already overstimulated. So start low, go slow, and listen to your body. Number 3, rebuild your mitochondria and your adrenals. This is about restoring the engine, not just easing off the gas. Some core supports that I often use are methylated B complex with B12, B6, and folate, magnesium malate for mitochondria, or glycinate for stress, CoQ10 or PQQ, those are mitochondrial nutrients, and vitamin C, especially in high stress seasons. And last but not least, trace minerals, things like sodium, potassium, zinc. Some patients also benefit from DHEA or pregnenolone, but those are not DIY supplements. They need lab testing and supervision. And remember, more is not better. This is about rhythm, nourishment, and consistency. Start small, build slowly. You're not going to hack your energy. You're trying to restore it. All right, so now you've got the map and the tools, but let me prepare you for something that no one really talks about. Because even when you're doing everything right, healing doesn't always feel amazing right away. And in fact, it can feel a little strange. Let's talk about what to expect when your body finally stops running on adrenaline and starts coming back into balance. When you stop relying on caffeine, and when you stabilize your blood sugar, and when you start buffering your nervous system and supporting your mitochondria, there's this weird in-between zone. You might feel more tired at first, or less productive, or slower, quieter, and foggier. And if you're used to running in overdrive, this can feel all wrong, like something's missing. But this phase is normal. It's not regression, it's regulation. Your body is recalibrating, it's relearning safety. It's rewiring your stress response so you don't need constant adrenaline to feel on. So if you feel like I'm doing all of the right things, but I feel worse, pause, because that's often a sign that your body is finally exhaling. Give it time, because what's on the other side of that recalibration? It's real energy, clearer thoughts, less reactivity, and actual rest that restores you. You're not broken, you're just not buzzing on stress anymore. If coffee stopped working for you, or if you're tired all day and wired at night, if you're wondering why your body just isn't responding like it used to, I want you to hear this. You're not failing, you're finally listening. Your body isn't broken, it's brilliant. It's not giving up, it's asking for help. And the moment you stop trying to push through and start tuning in, that is the moment that real healing begins. So if you're in this season right now and want clear steps to climb out of the crash, I made something for you. It's called the Energy Reset Guide, and it breaks down the exact things that I do with patients to rebuild real energy, nervous system safety, and resilience. Just DM me the word energy on Instagram at Dr. Nate Fulton, and I'll send it to you directly. Or scroll down to the show notes and grab the link. No fluff, just the good stuff. And hey, if this episode landed for you, follow the Root Cause RX podcast, send it to a friend who needs this message, and leave a quick rating or review. It really helps get this message out there. And until next time, keep tuning in, not pushing through, trust the wisdom beneath your fatigue. Your energy isn't gone, it's waiting to be rebuilt. You don't need to force it, you just need to listen.